Goeiemorgen, good morning, Khotsu, bonjour, salam alaikum. Treble crochet square tutorial. This square is useful to practice your treble crochet, that's a UK term, stitches. It also forms part of your very own long-term memory blanket. This video is part of the Crochet Basics series, in which you can learn to crochet at your own pace. Please note that I default to UK crochet terms, but when I remember I will mention the US equivalent and of course Afrikaans. To make the square, you will need to know how to do the following: how to make a chain stitch, how to make a UK treble, in US that is a double crochet or a long binky, and how to fasten off. A separate detailed video is available on my channel for each of these, so if you need any help, please click on the appropriate link in the description box to see the relevant video. And after that, come back as well, please. You will need the following to make the square: DK weight yarn, any color or fiber you want, and you'll need around 25 grams. I'm using the Chick double knit pull skein, and this one is color Snow Moon. I don't know, there's snow on the moon, but anyways. We'll also need for DK yarn a 4mm crochet hook, stitch markers, something to cut the yarn with, and a yarn needle to sew in the yarn ends. To begin, make a slip knot and attach the yarn to your hook. Chain 24. To make a chain, yarn over, pull the hook and the yarn with it through the loop currently on the hook. One chain stitch is made. The yarn on the hook does not count as a chain. Continue making chain stitches until you have 24. The first 22 chains form the foundation row on which the rest of the crochet is worked. The last chains makes the turning chain. I have my 24 chains made, 22 for the foundation and then the turning chain. These 3 chains will form the turning chain, which counts as the first stitch of the row. The turning chain brings the hook to the correct height for making the treble stitches. We will now make a treble crochet. That's a UK term, or in US a double crochet or a long binky. 1 treble crochet into each chain stitch of the foundation chain to form the first row. To begin with the first row, yarn over. You now have 2 loops on the hook, the loop that was there and the yarn over. Insert your hook in the 4th chain from the hook. Let's count together. The loops on your hook does not count as a stitch. Then 1, 2, 3 to locate the 4th chain and insert your hook into that 4th chain. Make a treble. You've already yarned over once and inserted your hook. Now yarn over again and draw up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 of the loops. There now remains 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through both loops. Your treble crochet is complete. Now that the first treble is made, immediately place a stitch marker into that last chain before the treble. So there is the top of the treble crochet, and this here will be the last chain stitch before the treble crochet. This is the top of the turning chain and it counts as the first stitch of the row. Let's make another treble into the chain. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain. There's the one we've just worked into, and there's the next one. Yarn over, draw up a loop. You have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. I suddenly realized that this snow moon was not a very good color to choose for a tutorial because you can barely see it against the hook. Let me see if I can find another 4mm. I think this is more visible now. Let's do that again. Yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain that has not been worked. If you straighten up the work, you can see there in which chain the last stitch was made, since it pulls it away. Insert your hook into the next chain. Yarn over, draw up a loop. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 of those loops. 2 loops remain on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Another treble is made. Since the turning chain counts as the first stitch of the row, we've already made 1, 2, 3, 4 trebles for the row. In total, we will have 22 stitches, including the turning chain. So continue in the same way, making 18 more treble stitches, 1 into each of the remaining chains, until you reach the end of the foundation row, and I will meet you there. I've worked to the end of the row. There's 1 more chain remaining. So for the last one, yarn over, insert into that last chain. This knot here is the slip knot where we started, and it is not another chain. If you're not sure if you've reached all the chains yet, then count your stitches to make sure you have the correct stitch count. So here we have 22 stitches, 21 of them trebles, and the 1 is the turning chain of 3 chains where we've placed the stitch marker. To start row 2 and every other row of the square, turn your work, as we always crochet from right to left if you crochet right-handed. Chain 3 to make a new turning chain, which will count again as the first stitch of the row. 1, 2, 3. I usually make 1 more stitch before I place the stitch marker into the chains to make sure that the chains do not deform. To make the first treble, yarn over. Now pay attention where you insert your hook. This stitch at the base of the chains is already taken care of, since that turning chain counts as the stitch for this stitch. So your hook will go into the second stitch from the row below. Insert the hook, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, if I can see them on the camera, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now immediately, or you could do it before, I just prefer with chain stitches to make another stitch first. Insert the stitch marker. So this chain 3 counts as the stitch that corresponds to this stitch of the row below, and the first treble crochet we've made corresponds to this stitch, which is why the treble crochet, which is why the turning chain counts as the first stitch of the row. The stitch marker is in the 3rd chain of this turning chain to mark the start of this row, which will be the last stitch of the next row. Continue making 1 treble into each stitch of the row below, going underneath both loops of every stitch. The norm is both loops unless it is otherwise mentioned. The reason for the stitch marker and my repeated emphasis on it is to eliminate one of the most common problems that newer crocheters experience, that of the rows sloping inwards or outwards. With a visual cue of the stitch marker, you will always know exactly where to place the last stitch of a row, and that will help you to maintain a correct row count. Continue making treble stitches, and I will meet you at the end of the row. I'm over at the end of the row. I've worked one treble into each stitch, and now I am at the last stitch. We know, oops, I'm at the second last stitch. Okay. Now I'm at the last stitch, right? Yes, right. We know that this is the last stitch because the stitch marker tells us so. And the stitch marker is in the third chain of the turning chain of the row below. So remove the stitch marker, yarn over, and then locate this third chain and insert your hook. It may be necessary to turn the work to clearly see the loops of the chain. Personally, I prefer to go under both loops because I think it looks neater and it takes longer, but I do like the neater look. I do know that many crocheters only use the one loop though, since it is faster. Yarn over and draw up a loop. You have your normal 3 loops on the row, on the hook, and complete the treble as usual. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Row 2 is complete with the last stitch into this turning chain. Continue making rows exactly in the same way as row 3 until your square is complete. That should take around 12 rows to have a square. So turn the work, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Replace the stitch marker before you forget. Yarn over, skip the stitch at the base of the chain and insert your hook into the next stitch. Make a treble into this second stitch. Finish this row, and when you reach the end of the row, making one treble into every stitch, the last stitch will go into the third chain of this turning chain where your stitch marker is keeping the place for you. So work until you have a total of 12 rows. If your tension is approximately the same as mine, the goal of this is to have all the stitches for the Nope. The goal of this is to have all the squares for the memory blanket to be approximately the same size, the same square, so length and width, so that you can easily sew them together. When you count the rows, only count the rows of the treble stitches. So this we will count as row 1, 2, 3. Do not count this row of the foundation chains. The foundation chains do not count as a row. So 1, 2, 3. I'll meet you at the end of row 12. You should now have a square that consists of a foundation chain and 12 rows of treble stitches. I have one more stitch to work, then the square will be complete. So remove the stitch marker, yarn over, insert underneath both loops of this chain. Now it's complete. To fasten off, make 2 chains, 1, 2. Cut the yarn, leaving enough to sew in the ends Oops. Pull the hook by pulling the yarn through this loop and hook is out. Grab the yarn, lightly pinch the 2 chains and pull tight. Making a very secure knot. Save your other stitch marker for next project and work in the beginning and ending yarn ends. Your square is complete. Add it to your stash for your memory blanket. Thank you for joining me here today. Hope to see you again soon. Have fun crafting!